On this episode of An Independent Perspective, we have some extremely revealing information of the wonderful intricacies inside the Biden regime, I guess you could call it, in regards to the infighting between Biden and Kamala Harris. And stick around and watch the whole video. It's going to be a wonderful time. But also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Doesn't take but just a second just to hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you get notified every time I post a new video.
I think most Democrats didn't feel like she was kind of a weakened vice president. She wasn't elevated by the Biden administration. We kind of go into this in the book that she felt a little undermined by a lot of people inside the administration, that they didn't do a good job in elevating her. And so she kind of carried those insecurities with her. But I think it's really interesting how, and then you have also Biden's people kind of sabotaging her and telling donors, for example, that Kamala Harris couldn't be the nominee. She wasn't strong enough to be the nominee. So that was another fight that was playing out.
So you
tried to save Biden. Oh, I'm sorry, Tara.
No,
I was just going to say they tried to save Biden. His team tried to save Biden, tried to make sure that he could breathe, that he could keep his head above water by trying to drown Kamala Harris in the weeks between the debate and when Biden actually got out. So for 3.5 weeks, she's taking hits behind the scenes from Biden's closest advisors. And by the way, some of them are dumb enough to have sent messages, like electronic messages that have been preserved. So, we were able to go back. We chose not to quote directly from some of the messages. We were able to go back and basically write what the basic content of those messages were to donors, to other allies, basically saying, if you keep pushing on Joe Biden, you're going to end up with Kamala Harris, and she's a total catastrophe and can't win. This is the president of the United States and his team just kneecapping the vice president, who, for I think most of us, it was clear all along that this was likely to end up in her hands as the candidate, and they're just doing all this damage to her.
Man, this right here is what I'm talking about. And the truth always comes out no matter who's at the helm, who is orchestrating the narrative. It always arises. The truth always shows itself. And they have receipts on it. Text messages showing how the plan was to not allow Kamala to rise above Biden. And I knew this was the case, and I'd spoken on this before. There's another video I did earlier when I first started the channel. Granted, it's not a very old channel. It's only a couple months old, but talking like I've been at this for a while. But anyways, where I was talking about how that was the reason why Kamala was hired. She was hired for that very reason. They already knew. See, this goes further and further back because they already knew Biden was mentally failing. This is already known. I'm assuming from the moment he pledged his candidacy and pretty much took the primary, the Democratic primary, and they're so set on, and we're so set on completely annihilating Trump by all means necessary, that they thought Biden was the shoe-in. He's just he's the grandpa, we're about to try to get the adults back in the room, blah, 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 when he's mentally failing. And it happens very quickly. These signs show. I've been around people who have had mental deterioration. I used to work in the healthcare field, and it comes on hard and fast. Takes no time at all for the downhill slide to take a hold of them. And it's sad. It's sad to watch it happen to someone, especially the president of the United States, even though I didn't agree with how Biden was running it as from a humanitarian stance and a human being standpoint. It was hard to watch. Granted, some of his gaffes were hilarious, like a lot of them are, from anybody, no matter who it is. But the hilarity was not that he was mentally depleting and his cognitive abilities were waning. That was not the funny part. The funny part was how often that the liberal media and the Democratic Party constantly lied to us, made us think that we have the issue, we have the problem with what we're seeing, and it's all BS. You know, I'd heard that when they first started the campaign, of course, Kamala withdrew. She got not a single vote in the primary, but she wasn't even on the Biden's list for they wanted to pick. They were going to pick a black woman, obviously, for historic purposes, and I get that too. And plus, trying to appeal to the country, you know, they're gonna use whatever angle they can. You know, I mean, she flat out called Biden a racist, said he was for segregation. Biden had some charges too of allegedly of sexual misconduct, and Kamala Harris said she believed his accusers, and now all of a sudden she's his vice president. And this is where the problem lies with Kamala. She sold her soul for that title, to be the vice president, to make history, which has not worked out very well anytime someone says that. To be vice president, she chose to take a path where she had to compromise who she was, because if you look at how she spoke to the media while the primary was going on, for the 2020 race or the 2020 presidency, she was much more focused. She was concise. She didn't just mumble, bumble, and fumble along and laugh and say inane, ridiculous things like a nervous schoolgirl who's never been in front of a camera. That was not her demeanor. But because she was lying, she had to carry that lie. She had to keep herself dumbed down. And granted, that's also a double-edged sword for her, because of how she ran this little snippet of a campaign, raising $1.5 billion, listening to her team and her donors, kind of, I guess, and just blowing it on ridiculousness, and still ended up 20 million in the hole. There's a multitude of reasons why Kamala should never be president of the United States. And one of them is she sold herself out for that title to be the vice president of the United States. And anyone who's willing to do that doesn't have a backbone strong enough to run the most powerful country in the world. It's not conducive to strength, and perseverance. You're not gonna hold. So, but it continues. Just take a look at this.
Obama loved the governors, generally speaking, and we were told that he had a particular affinity for Gretchen Whitmer.
Okay.
Thought that she would be a good person. Whitmer, interestingly, had been floated, right after the debate as somebody, and actually during the hours of the debate, in a congressional women's caucus text chain. Hillary Scholten, a freshman from Michigan, while the debate's going on, text to the rest of the group, Whitmer for president. And then a bunch of CBC members on the same text thread start pushing back.
Congressional Black Caucus members.
Yeah, Congressional Black Caucus members start pushing back and say it's got to be Kamala Harris. This is like on debate night. No one's defending Joe Biden. They all think he's got to go. But suddenly you see this kind of white-black fault line break open in this text chat. Whitmer, her name is surfacing online, and Democratic leaders are talking about her, and she actually calls Kamala Harris, a few days after the debate, and basically says, "Look, I'm not running for president. I'm not competing with you." Such a fascinating time with all of these people knifing each other in the back.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Were there any stipulations for this Biden endorsement? Like, did Harris have to do anything to get it?
We're not aware of any stipulations. I mean, other than beg him to make it fast, right? Like, and this is So for Biden, it's kind of an FU, kind of a middle finger to Barack Obama. And we go deep in this book into the relationships between him and Obama and how like frayed that is, and his terrible, like what had been a great relationship with Pelosi that turns into this terrible relationship. But ultimately Biden would have looked silly telling the country that someone other than his vice president was the best person to be president. He would have looked ridiculous.
It was never in Kamala's future to be president of the United States. That was not what was meant for her. Rightly so. She can't handle that pressure. Anyone that would sell themselves out like that most assuredly does not need to be at the helm of this country or especially this country. I mean, whatever country, I don't care about the other ones in regards to juxtapose ours and the rest of the world. I'm very much an America first person. And that's the people, I'm not talking about the government and the crap that they're pulling. That they normally pull. They always do some underhanded stuff. I don't care who's in charge. That just unfortunately comes with the job. I don't sit and worry about that. But it was not Kamala's job to become president of the United States. She was there to kind of be a buffer and to catch some of the flack and offset the stringent microscopic viewing of Biden and his presidency and the things that he did. Didn't work very well because they both dropped the ball a lot, and it's caused all this infighting because now the House is divided in it's fractured. It's not even divided. The Democratic House is fractured, and it's because all they did was lie. They lied for 4 years. They're continuing to lie now. All the infighting, Pelosi and Obama and Biden, they're at odds with each other because they forced him out of his candidacy. I mean, he could. There's no way he could be president again. Anyways, he shouldn't have been president the first time. And Kamala, listening to her team in her short-lived candidacy, like I said, $1.5 billion blown and still $20 million in debt when they were done. That's a problem. You don't need to be at the helm of the world's most powerful country either. That's not your job. Governor of California, it's painfully obvious, and it has been, that Kamala was not meant to go any further than what she had. She was most assuredly a tool to continue to further Biden's agenda and to be left by the wayside. Even Obama wanted someone completely different. He favored Gretchen Whitmer himself. But Biden knew that, and Biden was going to, as they said, give him the bird, so to speak, by declaring Kamala his successor to take over as the Democratic primary candidate, which she received absolutely no votes whatsoever to be in the primary, or to be the Democratic Party's decision. And then they tried to once again run identity politics to bolster and rebrand her as a moderate on top of that, when she is 100% a far-left progressive and has always been that. So it was continued lie after lie after lie, the same formula they kept trying, and they do for everything. They just lie. They just lie about they need to get back to who they used to be. I supported Bill Clinton when he ran for office. I voted for him. And he did a phenomenal job with this country and this economy. He did a great job with it. Now, there's some of his policies I didn't stand for, but he definitely was good at the economy. So, I mean, those kind of Democrats don't exist anymore. It doesn't even exist in his wife, Hillary. I was all for a woman being president. I still am. I'm 100% behind that. That I think that will be good. It depends on the person. Depends on the candidate that's running for that office, that's wanting that job. And Kamala is not it. Kamala is not presidential material. I don't care what anybody says. She can't handle that job. There's no way. She couldn't handle being vice president at all. couldn't even pretend to be a good vice president. And once again, that's where the Democrats they messed up by wanting her for that very reason, because she isn't strong enough. And she proved that time and time again. Right out the gate, proved it. For taking the job under false pretense. She was not fit for that office. She's not fit for the president's office. And if she had won, wouldn't have been good. But anyways, enough of what I think. Why don't you tell me what you think? Please leave a comment. Leave a barrage of comments. I love that interaction. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I hope you have a wonderful evening.